أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ورضي الله تعالى عن السادة التابعين وعلماء العاملين وأئمة الأربعة المجتهدين ومقلديهم إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I asked you all to share this video, and once again I apologize for my tardiness. I posted a stat saying that I will be live at 6 o'clock. It's 6:25. You know, when I decided on the time, I thought I would have enough time to get ready, make it to the masjid, but I didn't, so I was running late. Please forgive me. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everyone who gave the greetings. Idris, Isa. Please share this feed. Before I get into the topic, I want to announce a conversation between imams that's going to be public this evening. If you're on my page, you saw the picture or the flyer, the Black Imams Roundtable addressing our concerns, with Imam Fahim Lee of Kuba School and Islamic Center in Camden, New Jersey, Imam Amin Muhammad of Masjid Muhammad in Atlantic City, and Imam Luqman Ahmed of the Islamic Community, the Masjid in Toledo, Ohio, and myself. That's at 9:30, and you will be able to participate in this conversation from Masjid Muhammad's website, mmacinc.org, live. Information is on my page. If you're watching this, just scroll down and you'll see it. You'll be able to click on the links to participate, and I will try to stream it live from my page as well, inshallah. But if not, all of the information is there. Alhamdulillah. What we want to talk about, and this type of discussion can never be brief, but I'm going to try to keep it under an hour, because this is not something that we can discuss, hash out, and deal with any justice in one conversation anyway, even if we went for 3 hours. Well, let me set my timer here. Okay. Where was that? I know what I wanted to talk about, but I was trying to put it in the title. I'm not good with titles. A lot of times I think the titles to my khutbahs or classes are actually corny. Like I don't even like my titles. You know, some people are real good with, you know, putting together catchy titles, something that captures the substance of what is being spoken about, as well as being catchy at the same time. I'm not good at that stuff. So this is why you get the long drawn out title. Even the title that I put here is not the title that I have written in front of me. I wasn't impressed with what I had written down. I believe the title that's up there is In-House Conversations in the Black Muslim Community about the reality of brotherhood in Islam. It's kind of like long drawn out, and I don't even think it captures really what I really want to get at. So we obviously, everyone is talking about the murder, the lynching of George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. that particular murder, execution, has opened up other issues and conversations. For most of us, we're talking about, well, not us, I'm just saying us to be politically correct, and I hate politically correct. Most of y'all talking about the looting, the protests, the stealing, the violence. That's what most of y'all talking about. I'm not talking about that. But one of the other peripheral issues that has come out of this situation is the relationship between the quote-unquote immigrant community and the African American community, or the black community. And today, for the most part, whenever I use the term black, I'm not talking about all blacks. I'm not talking about continental Africans. I'm not talking about Caribbeans. I'm not talking about our black brothers in the UK. I'm talking about the group of people that are known as African Americans. For this conversation, emphasis on this conversation. I particularly don't like the term African American Muslim. I like to use the term black Muslim. So when I say black, you know who I'm talking about. And when I say immigrant Muslims, that's just a general term that we use here, and it may even apply to people who haven't immigrated here. It could apply to Muslims who were born to parents who immigrated here. Whether they from any of the Arab countries or the Desi community, the Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi community. And those are the the largest groups, but there are other groups as well. Turks, other Asians outside of the subcontinent. But usually when we say immigrant, we're talking about Arabs, regardless from what country they come from, or we're talking about the Pakistanis and the Bengali community, the Bangladeshi community. And so, and the reason why the killing of George Floyd has brought all of this up is because apparently he paid, I believe, for some cigarettes, and the $20 bill that was used allegedly was counterfeit, which prompted the calling of police. Now, for the purposes of this live here, we're not talking about the specifics of that situation. What a lot of people don't understand is the fact that he was killed as a response to whatever took place in the Arab-owned store has revived the conversation that blacks in general, particularly black Muslims, have with our immigrant brothers, especially the ones who set up stores in our community. So I really don't want to hear about the specifics of that situation. I'm talking about a more general conversation. And as far as the black community is concerned, once upon a time, depending on what city you lived in, those who operated the businesses in the black neighborhoods, the ethnic groups shift. The ethnic groups shifted from period to period. At one time, it wasn't always the Arab. At one time, it was the Korean. At another time before that, it was the Jewish community. But at some point, it became the Arab community. And when these subjects come up, a lot of people are offended Some people are going to be offended just by me talking about it. And trust me, I'm going to talk about it in blunt terms. I'm not apologizing for anything. I'm not apologizing for expressing what we all see every day in any hood in the United States. I'm not apologizing for that. Some leaders spend a lot of time talking to the immigrant community about the black Muslim community. I'm not one of those people. Normally when I speak, I'm talking to the black Muslim community. I'm not talking to the immigrant community claiming to be speaking for the black community. I don't do that. Most of the time I'm speaking to the black community. And a lot of you have to understand this. People that are experienced in public speaking, they're very clear about who they're speaking to, who their audience is, who they're targeting. You may be unclear and foggy about who's being addressed, but any public speaker that has any experience in public speaking, they're very cognizant of who they're speaking to. And they're also cognizant of who may be listening or who may have access to their talk, even though they may or may not be talking to them. They're very clear about that. You may not be clear, but they're clear. So a lot of times you have to take into account, and right now, I'm not speaking to the immigrant community, even though some of them may be listening, or they may chime in later, or they may listen later. Well, I'm going to need to be clear now. I'm not talking to you. You're welcome to listen, but I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about us, but I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the black Muslim community. And by me saying that, some people are offended by that. Oh well. See, black Muslims don't have the luxury that a lot of other groups have. See, it happens to us all the time. Whether we be on social media or we're in a physical space, in the masjid, a lecture hall, a lecture. When they want to talk to the immigrant Muslims, when they want to talk to each other, and they want to exclude us from the conversation, they don't have to say, my black brother in Islam, I'm not talking to you. They don't do that. They just switch languages. They speak in a language most of us don't understand. They'll switch to Arabic. They'll switch to Urdu. They'll switch to any one of the other languages that they speak. Even though you're physically right there in the conversation, at the table, on the musalla, and they switch languages on you intentionally for the purposes of excluding you from the conversation, they know exactly what they're doing. They're saying something and they don't want you involved in the conversation. They don't say, my brother, I'm sorry, can you excuse us? Or brother, can I have your permission to talk about something privately over here? Because that's Islamic etiquette, that's Islamic protocol. You don't whisper or speak privately to another person and you have other Muslims in the conversation. If you want to say something privately to another Muslim, you ask for permission or you go off privately. You don't just whisper or change languages that you know that person can't speak. They do it to us all the time. We don't say no, we just sit there looking stupid or we walk away. But most of us don't have the luxury of a second language. Or if we do, it's only a few of us, so we're forced to speak in English. And because we're forced to speak in English, sometimes when we having in-house conversations, other people butt in and assume that they have a right to even interject themselves in our conversation. Like, what? I'm not even talking to you, first of all. But we don't have the luxury of privacy in public spaces. So we're forced to have these conversations in the open. And a lot of times when we talking, like for example, when I'm saying I or we or us, some people may be confused of who I'm referring to. Is he talking about black people or is he talking about Muslims? Because he's black and he's Muslim. I'm assuming he's talking about Muslims, or I'm assuming he's talking about black people. So for the purpose of this racially sensitive conversation, I'm being redundant and very clear of who I'm talking to and who I'm talking about and who I'm cognizant of may hear this. This is obviously public. It's social media. Everybody can hear it. Even non-Muslims. FBI, CIA, National Security Administration, everybody. But I'm clear, I'm talking to black Muslims. And I defined already what I meant by black Muslims as it relates to this conversation. I'm not talking to Africans on the continent or from the continent. I'm not talking to our Caribbean brothers. I'm not talking about our brothers in the UK. I'm talking about black people who are Muslims in America who have a connection or a lineage going back to the slave trade in this country. That's exactly who I'm talking to. Because see, our black brothers who are Africans, most of them speak a bare minimum of 3 languages. So, you know, as far as languages are concerned, they can switch up like crazy. But us, we have to speak in English. The most coded we could get is emphasize our ebonics, what they call ebonics. Emphasize our slang. That's the most we can get. So this situation with George Floyd that was killed by police, it was because of whatever happened in that Arab store, so the Arab-owned store. So this brought up conversations with regards to that. And that's a conversation that we need to have. I've seen this firsthand back in the mid-90s. I used to hang out with a group of brothers in Bridgeton, New Jersey. It would have building from Jehovah's Witness and established a masjid. Imam was originally from Philly. Well, the Imam was originally from Philly, but he resided in Bridgeton, New Jersey. I even got married at that masjid. But over time, I'm just reading what's written. Of the time when I was visited, an influenced foreign brother, because it was professional lawyers, I said it was relation. Time when the masjid became internally unrecognizable. The influence had dictated the direction of the masjid, of course. Yep. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, I remember, it wasn't that long ago, this issue came up. This issue came up with these Arab store owners and the way they mistreat people in the hoods that they serve or that they leech off of. And that's what it is. They're not serving anybody. That they leech off of. Right? And I forgot my exact status or whatever, but some people took offense to it. And the ones who took offense to it aren't even hood ghetto store owners. They don't. Some of these people are righteous people that are active in the masjid. But you know, as they say, you know, we have this the saying, the hit dog is the one that hollers. In other words, when you throw a rock in a pack of dogs, the one that that's the one that got hit by it. In other words, it hit too close to home. So even though you don't own a store, you don't sell beer, you don't sell drug paraphernalia, you don't sell cigarettes, you don't, you know, you're not involved with a lot of the lewd things that go on in these stores, because, you know, not all, what I call not Orleans. Well, not all, everybody, nobody said not all. Nobody said all Arabs, nobody said all. And me personally, I'm getting tired of explaining not all. We know not all. Nothing is not all. Right? Even Allah and His Messenger use blanket statements in the Quran, in the Sunnah, and it's understood that it's not all. So I no, not Orleans pissed me off. I just it's just you know they got hit by, so they just really trying to deflect. You shouldn't talk about this. No, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it whether you like it or not. And black people, we have a problem. We don't talk about issues because it's going to make other people feel uncomfortable. We got to stop that. Especially when we're talking about issues when we are the victims and we worrying about making someone else uncomfortable. We got to stop that. Well, maybe we shouldn't talk about that. No, even Allah says in the Quran that is not proper. For that when a wrongdoing or an injustice has been done, for you to talk about it and spread it all around without taking it to those who are charged with the affair, except if you are the one who has been wrong, except if you're the victim. If you're the victim, you have a right to talk about it, especially if you haven't gotten justice. Especially if you have been the one that's wronged, injustice has been done to you, and you have not gotten justice. No one is in an Islamic position to tell you you shouldn't be talking about it. They are the wrong ones that have been wrong. And I plan on mentioning that tomorrow in the Jummah khutbah. So people try to pull the Islamic card on you, right? Well, we shouldn't talk about this. This is not Islamic. Whoa, 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 whoa. Who are you to determine what is Islamic and what is not Islamic? And there's some, and a lot of these issues exist because we let it exist. And I know not everyone has my personal history and experience. Like for me, like if you listen to my live the other day, like I took Shahada in prison. My first teachers were prisoners just like me. Even most of the chaplains who worked in the prisons, most of them were black just like me. My early Islam wasn't dependent on immigrant benevolence. No, my first teachers were people who were locked up and shackled just like me. When I came home to Masjid Taqwa in Brooklyn, Imam Siraj Wahaj, a black indigenous Muslim community. My Islam came from there to there. And ever since then, up until now, my Islam, I've always been connected in, nurtured by, active within, and active in black Muslim communities. So, and I know not every black Muslim has that experience. There are a lot of you who may be watching this that maybe, however you got introduced to Islam, you maybe went to a masjid, you just looked up masjid. And you saw the Islamic Center of such and such. And you went there. And it was an immigrant masjid. And then you took Shahada there. And so you were dependent upon them for, you know, your early Islam is shaped by that. Or maybe you went to university and you got exposed to Islam. And then so you got active in an MSA. And I know not all MSAs are the same, you know, but most of them, many of them now are connected to the national MSA, connected to ISNA, so you're dealing with immigrants. So maybe your early Islam was connected and, you know, nurtured by the immigrant community. And so you're reading books. And you're reading about this brotherhood. You're going to read the hadith and the story behind the hadith that I'm going to mention in a few minutes, inshallah. You read these things about this beautiful Islamic brotherhood. And then you came to the masjid for congregational prayer. And you read the book or you learned from your teacher or however you was learning Islam that when you're in the prayer lines, you're supposed to touch one another. Depending on your fiqh or lack of fiqh, maybe they told you foot to foot. Maybe they told you shoulder to shoulder. But you recognize you're supposed to touch the one that you're praying next to in the line. And then you stood up in the line, in the salat line, and you touched your immigrant brother in a salat line. And then he practiced social distancing from you. He moved 2 feet away from you. And this was way before you ever heard of COVID-19. And you're like, wait a minute, why did he move away from me? I stink or something? Like, oh. So then you, whoa, then you did it again. And then that brother moved away from you. You're like, what's going on here? And believe it or not, like me, I don't have that problem. This happened to me plenty times. But for me, I don't care about all that. But for some of you, it broke your heart. You didn't understand it. Like, whoa, like, why they move so far away from me? What's going on? Some of you, you like, man, I'm Muslim, I'm a man, I'm trying to get married. Maybe you live in a city, there ain't no indigenous masjids. Supposed to be married, supposed to stay away from zina, right? Supposed to stay away from fornication and adultery. You trying to marry a Muslim. Like I said, maybe that's the only masjid in your area. Maybe, you know, you feel comfortable in that masjid. That's where you took shahada at. Maybe there is a black masjid in your city, but you just haven't been there yet. You don't know nobody from there. Whatever, the person who gave you shahada there's an attachment, right? You're there trying to get married. At their Sunday school, you see all these young girls running around. Hey, you know, I'm trying to get married. Okay, inshallah, mashallah, tabaraka wa ta'ala, jazakallah khairan, all the phrases, right? You ain't getting married. At some point, you realize that. You're watching nikah after nikah go on. And you're like, when I'm going to get married? Innamal mu'minuna ikhwa. It says that in the Quran. Verily the believers are brothers. I'm like, yo, this is my Muslim brother here. We not on Islam. There is no racism. This is what you read in the books. This is what you were taught in the lectures, right? But you, in your master, in your real life, you're not experiencing that. It's not there. And then when you get around people like us, other black people, like, oh man, you feel comfortable? SubhanAllah, man, I just prayed over there, man. He wouldn't even pray next to me. Oh yeah, bro, SubhanAllah, yeah. I went through that, man. I took shahada in that masjid over there, man. The Islamic Center over there. And, you know, man, I was deluded, man. I tried to get married over there. They almost laughed in my face. Married. Right? And we have these, us, who I'm talking to, black Muslims. I'm talking to you, just in case you missed the part where I said that. I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to them about us. I'm talking to you about our situation, right? I'm not one of those imams that going to spend all day explaining to them what they should already know, right? I'm talking to you, right? We have this conversation amongst ourselves, right? Privately, but when we get in the same space with them, the immigrant Muslims, and it's the time where we should talk about this, mashallah, inshallah, we bow our heads and meekly scurry off. When you know that that's an issue. We are brothers. Innamal mu'minuna ikhwa. Verily the believers are brothers. Inna hadhi ummatukum ummatun wahida. Verily this ummah is one ummah. Yeah, that's what Allah says in the Quran, but that's not what we're practicing today. And those of us who want to practice it, it's not happening. And they victim blame. Most of us, we were taken away from our tribe. We don't know what tribe we're from. Like I always say here, like they always tell me I'm Fulani, but I don't know that. I can trace my family to I can go about 5-6 generations up on my father's side. It stops at slavery. I haven't dug up any further than that. I don't know if my people were really Fulani. I mean, people could tell phenotypes, you know, people, they say, yeah, without a doubt. My Gambian daughter, yeah, she's Fulani, yeah, so without a doubt. But I can't prove that to you by lineage. I can't prove that. And most of us ought to have the same situation. So we're not tripping off a tribe. We're not tripping off of, you know, or you Hausa, or you Yoruba, or you Fulani. We're not tripping off that because we don't know. So we don't have that issue. But when we express, hey man, listen, whoa, 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 whoa. Allah says this and we not experiencing that. What's going on? Well, just keep coming around. We get some wishy-washy. Oh, make dua, brother. Make dua. Or when you start speaking like me, we get accused of being a racist. Yes, we will get accused of being a racist. And even some brainwashed Negro, so-called black, African-American, whatever title, rock, simple Muslims will accuse you of that. SubhanAllah. In-house conversations about black Muslim, in the black Muslim community, about the reality of the brotherhood in Islam. My personal position is I'm not explaining nothing to them. And I'm not saying this out of any malice or any hostility. Anyone that knows me personally, I'm very mild-mannered, you know. Those they know me personally, you know I ain't on no rah-rah, hate all immigrant. That's not me. But because that's not me as a person, that just don't think just because my normal nature is meek and mild-mannered that I'm going to not speak the truth about it. If you know me personally, the situation comes up, I'm saying the same thing that I'm saying on this live. If me and you sitting having a personal conversation, me and you meaning the immigrant brother, and you ask me about this, yeah, some of your people's racist, and you know it. And if anyone of my immigrant friends try to tell me that his people or her people are not racist and most of my people not like that, I'll probably cease that friendship because now you lying to my face. And I don't like when people insult my intelligence. I can't stand that. That burns me up more. I don't know which burns me, the living a lie, you're just going to just lie in my face. And most of the people that I do know and that we cool like that on that type of level, they'll be honest, they'll admit it. Even if they won't admit it over a microphone, they will admit it in a personal conversation. But a lot of people want us to suffer quietly. They want us to discuss this in an Islamic fashion. And I'm telling you today that we are discussing it in an Islamic fashion. You just want us to be quiet about it. And the time for being quiet was over a long time ago. It's actually a slap in the face. Because my parents and my grandparents' generation, they were involved. I said their generation. Not all of our parents and grandparents were active in the civil and the human rights struggle. Everybody tries to say they're involved. They was involved. They was marching with King. I was down with Malcolm. No, you wasn't. You was watching it on TV and was happy that you had a job. Stop lying, right? But my parents and grandparents' generation fought, died, was maimed, suffered for us to even be having this conversation. What do you mean? Part of the civil rights legislation that was passed has to deal with immigration reform. If that immigration reform wasn't passed in the mid-60s, most of these immigrants that we having these issues with wouldn't even be here. That's why up and all through the 60s, the 70s, and it started changing a lot in the 80s, when you said American Muslim, you automatically thought of a black person. Because it wasn't enough of them here. They were here, but it wasn't enough of them. So the immigration reform happened as a result, and it was part and partial of the civil rights legislation. So a lot of Indians and Arabs and other people started coming here in large numbers, going to university, getting degrees. And a lot of times, what part of the conversation that's left out that a lot of you black Muslims don't know is that depending on what country they came from, depending on how they came, they get lines of credit, grants, and loans from this government or their home government, or both, to finance their education and their businesses that they set up. And they keep this stuff hush-hush quiet. And then they stand up and say, I don't understand why the black Muslim is in the situation that he's in now. I came over here and I pulled myself up with my bootstraps. You know, when I first came here, one brother tell me, you know, man, I got my clothes and my furniture from the Salvation Army, and I struggled and I worked hard, and then I got my first start and I spread it and I built up. I don't understand why black people can't do that. Because you lying, you hiding the part about the line of credit you got from a bank, but that's a national bank from your country. You leaving out that part. You leaving out the welfare. The welfare that you shame us for getting, the welfare that you automatically get when you come here, that you keep quiet about. And black people are ashamed to say, well, you know, I'm getting welfare. They're getting it too when they first got here, before they completed their degree. They just keep it hush-hush about it. They don't talk about that part. When you pull yourselves up by your bootstrap. No! And you wonder why we talking about reparations? The reparations, that the money, the banking, the financing, the lines of credit, the grants, the loans, and all of these things that are afforded to you is coming from us. Our ancestors built this country. When we came here, there was no such thing as America. Our ancestors built America for you to come to and then look down on us, their descendants, that had their Islam taken from them by force. And then you're going to come down and look down on us? Well, I'm not talking to y'all, but I know you're going to listen anyway. I'm talking to you, black Muslim. When I first came to the Deen, I used to hear a lot of rhetoric about, you know, in Islam, there's a lot of myths. There's a lot of make-believe. Not in Islam, in our, you know, in our conversations and our understandings of Islam. Not in Islam proper, but in our understandings and conceptualizations of Islam. There's a lot of myths floating around. One of the myths that I remember, I don't really hear too much anymore, but one of the myths that I remember is that the immigrant community in America, they're like the Muhajirun. They're like the Sahaba who made immigration from Mecca to Medina. And us, the black Muslims, back then it wasn't hardly any white Muslims. It was just a few here and there. Right? Us, black Muslims, we're like the Ansar. When I heard that, I was like, I learned Sirah very early on. Like when I took Shahada, and I'm going back early to like early Shahada, like a few months in the Deen, Rikers Island, C-73. We used to have circles where, okay, you a new Muslim, you got to sit in the Tawheed class, what we used to call it, and in the Salat class. You can't go into the Arabic class and none of that other stuff. You can't go to the Sirah class until you finish your Salat class. And you can't just say, I know my Salat. You have to stand up and say, do your prayer, all of it, even the silent parts out loud for your teacher and everybody in the class to hear. And check your pronunciation and all of that. So when I got to that Sirah circle, which was kind of like high, right? When I got to that Sirah circle, I learned very early on, okay, the Muhajirun, the people who made hijrah from Mecca to Medina, for the most part, they left all of their belongings in Mecca. So when they got to Medina, they didn't have anything. This was 1,400 years ago. It's not you. There wasn't U-Haul. They didn't have electronic banking. They could. You can only bring what you can carry, right? The Ansar, they're obviously from Medina. They had some wealth. The Aus and the Khazraj, who make up the Ansar, they were in control of the land, even though they were being manipulated by Bani Nadir, Bani Qainuqa, Bani Qurayza, and all that. But for the most part, physically, they controlled the land. They were the wealthy. When the Muhajirun came to them, made hijrah to them, and established Islam, they used their wealth, they split their wealth, they took them in and supported them. So I learned this very early on, right after I learned how to pray. So I'm like, whoa, this narrative, some few pieces don't fit in there just right. Okay, if we're like the Ansar, and we're supposed to help and support and welcome our brothers who made hijrah to us, something's wrong. Most of us are broke. We can't, most of them, when they get here, they better off than us as soon as they step foot on the land here. So that's one inconsistency with that narrative. Another inconsistency with that narrative is that we don't control nothing here. We don't set policy or nothing like that. The white supremacists do. The government does. And this is a hierarchical system. And we're at the bottom of the hierarchy. And they allowed you to come here, and they put you as a buffer group in the middle of the hierarchy. So the whole Ansar Muhajirun narrative don't work. It don't line up. I never brought that. Key components of that narrative don't work. So that whole, you need to get rid of that. That don't work. If any of you still operating off that myth, get rid of it. It don't work. It's old, antiquated, it's debunked, it's flawed, it's trash. Get rid of it. If you insisting on using the Ansar Muhajirun narrative, we the Muhajirun. We the one broke and don't have nothing. They're the one who has the wealth. I mean, if you really want, if you insist on using Muhajirun and Ansar, if you just got to use that, that narrative between two different groups of Muslims, how they gel together to form one community. If you are insisting on using that narrative, even though we were here first, our situation is more consistent with the Muhajirun. Those who made hijrah here. Part of the problem, and I meant to mention it earlier, and we have to get out of it, we have to stop letting people define us. What do I mean? I mentioned the civil rights legislation and all of that. A lot of our ancestors died trying to get freedom. They did like a bait and switch. Or they did a sleight of hand. And they still doing it today. Black people will receive the brunt of a particular type of oppression and then finally fight against it. And then when they give us some relief of the oppression, they don't make it specific for black people. They make it general. That's how you get minority. All of these set-asides and grants and I can't think of the term right now. Affirmative action and actions, right? That black people fought for. They didn't give it exclusively to us. They expanded it and made it for minorities. And so who's minority? White women, immigrants, and also black people. But the whole reason why you have all of these things for minorities is because of what black people went through and what black people fought for. And so there are people in this country right now who are getting benefits that are because they are defined as minorities, and they weren't even here when the legislation passed to get that set aside or to get that relief. But they're enjoying the benefits of it. And then looking down on us. The latest example of that is the people of color terminology. POC, people of color. And a lot of times us black people use it because we are, again, afraid to offend people. We're afraid to offend people. So, yes, we've been oppressed, black and brown, with people of color. Yes, all that may be true, but when we're talking about something specific for black people, say black. Yes, there are points where we intersect, intersectionality. Women are oppressed. LGBT is oppressed. I'm telling you, you wonder why some Muslim leaders, you see them holding the flag for LGBT. This is the same door that was opened. It just goes a lot of ways. Let me see something. I gotta send someone a text. Hold on for a minute. Sure. Alhamdulillah. They are because they're more collective. 8 family members who did not air out loans. Alhamdulillah. And so we have to get out of that. We gotta say what we mean what we say, especially when issues like this. We have to be very specific. We can't be like real genuine, like wink, wink, you know who I'm talking to. No, say who you talking to and who you talking about. And somebody, if any of our immigrant brothers or sisters listening to this, you have an audacity to be mad about, being offended because we express the pain that's inflicted upon us from what someone else has done to us. And you upset about how we express that. You got some nerve. You got the audacity. SubhanAllah, can you imagine a woman, a'udhu billah, that gets raped? A'udhu billah. And it's common. It's real common. We don't like to talk about it, but it's real common. Woman gets raped. And then, and if she has the courage, to stand up and say, listen, this one over here raped me. Can you imagine someone say, oh no, you offended me. Why did you say Uncle Bob raped you? Not every uncle's a rapist. What? You wouldn't even imagine saying something like that. Well, some coaches, they do, like SubhanAllah, but that's another story, right? She's a victim. You don't tell her how to get justice. She's a victim. Stop trying to focus on how she announces the crime that has been done to her and deal with the criminal. Deal with the criminal. Now, well, maybe you shouldn't, announce what happened to you like that. What? No, maybe you should shut up and mind your business. And I'm saying this for any of our immigrant brothers that may be listening. If you receive some anger, hostility from black American Muslims or black Americans in general, that's where it's coming from. It ain't just pop up because of George Floyd. No, George Floyd, for some of us, may have been the straw that broke the camel's back. It may have been like, F it. I don't care no more. But this has been going on for a long time. And instead of being upset at people like me for being honest with you, you need to thank me for telling you. But then again, I'm not telling you. I'm not even talking to you. You just listening. I didn't tag none of y'all. Alhamdulillah. So that's one of the myths. And so some of our immigrant brothers and sisters, they may be sincere. Some of them have reached out to various imams and have asked them, Imam, what can we do about this situation? Right? I want to mention this idea because I was just looking at my timer, and so I'm going to try to wrap it up. And plus, if those of you who are listening to me, I don't want you to be too tired. I want you to come back at 9:30 for a more important conversation later on that I mentioned in the beginning. And Anas radiallahu anhu qala qadima Abdurrahman ibn Auf al-Madinata fa'akha Nabiyyu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam bayna Sa'd ibn Rabi'a al-Ansari. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he made the hijrah and the Muslims converged on Medina, he made a brotherhood. And there are many hadiths indicating this. The hadith that I'm going to paraphrase and mention loosely is coming from, it's been mentioned in Sahih Bukhari in more than one chapter. I'm coming from the chapter of Buyu, the chapter of business. And it's narrated on the authority of Anas ibn Malik. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he paired people up. The Muhajirun, those who were disenfranchised, with the Ansar, the people from Medina. He literally paired them up. And Anas ibn Malik is saying that the Prophet ﷺ had paired up Abdurrahman ibn Auf. He's a Muhajir. He's from Mecca. I'm using the front face. I got to say this because, especially when you're dealing with hot topics, people going to look for fault. I see this brother, man, he is deviant. He drinking with his left hand. It looks like it's my left hand, but it's my right hand. When you use a front-facing camera, it inverts the image. And this is the sad situation that we're in. I got to mention that every time I drink on camera. But in any case, he made the connection between Abdurrahman ibn Auf and Sa'd ibn Rabi'a. Sa'd ibn Rabi'a is Ansar. He's from Medina. And so, Sa'd ibn Rabi'a was one of the wealthy of the Ansar. And he told Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he said, I'm one of the richest men in Medina. I'm one of the richest men in Medina. I have 2 wives. And in one narration, I have 2 orchards or 2 gardens. He said, I'll marry one of my wives to you. In other words, I'll divorce her. She'll complete her iddah, and I'll even facilitate the marriage. And he said, I'll divide my wealth in half for you. Abdurrahman ibn Auf said, Barakallahu laka fi ahlika wa malika. Duluni ala suq. May Allah put barakah, may Allah put blessings in your family and in your wealth. But show me to the marketplace. There's a lot of obvious things about this hadith narration, and the wording is depending on which narration you're reading. In one narration, he mentions that he took him to the marketplace of Banu Qaynuqa. He showed him to that marketplace. He later, after a few days, he went to the marketplace. He kept buying and selling. He came back. He brought some butter. he brought some butter or some yogurt, and he kept trading, buying and selling, until the Prophet ﷺ noticed some traces of saffron on him and asked him, did he get married? And he's like, yeah, he just got to Medina. What did you give her for a dowry? He said, I gave her some gold, about the size of a date seed. He said, you need to have a walima. Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he was like, he even said literally, because, you know, it's not mentioned in this hadith, it's mentioned in other hadith, other places, but the Prophet ﷺ made dua for Abdurrahman and his wealth. And, you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers the dua of the Prophet ﷺ. So, Abdurrahman said, it literally got to the point where if he looked under a rock for some wealth, he would find it. So, Abdurrahman, he had money. Even though when he got to Medina, he was broke. What's some lessons that we usually get, that we get out of this hadith? Obviously, the brotherhood. But that brotherhood was tangible. I gave several khutbahs over the years called tangible brotherhood. Brotherhood is not only this warm, mushy feeling that we have. Brotherhood is tangible. You can count it. You can touch it. The manifestations of it. You can touch it. The brotherhood that we have now, that we call brotherhood, that ain't brotherhood, is not brotherhood. It's not brotherhood. If there was real brotherhood between the black American and the immigrant Muslim, this hadith will be one of the hadith that will be a blueprint. I know your situation. I know, I'm privileged. Let me show you to the marketplace. See, a lot of y'all don't know, a lot of these, like these store owners and stuff, it be conglomerates of families. And we know what they do in our hoods. I meant to go in a little bit about that for those of you who don't know. But there's some real foul stuff that go on. Not all, right? For you, all you not all in. See, I said it, not all of them, right? But the majority, a whole big chunk, a sizable portion of them do a whole lot of real greasy, grimy stuff in our neighborhoods. You know, even now as I'm talking, right? As I'm talking, I'm thinking about the corner store where I grew up at, where I used to buy my 40 ounces from. They were Muslim Arabs. I didn't think about it, before I took Shahada. When I came home, I went into that store just to see if there was Muslims. I seen a Quran jacked up in the window. You know, that old that bulletproof plexiglass they have in these stores in our neighborhoods and all that. You know, next to the Easy Wiser, the Philly Blunts, and the crack bottles and all of this stuff. And all that, and it's Quran right there. Might even have some Quran playing in the background. This is what it looks like in our hood. Sometimes they have the neighborhood hood rat working in the store. Sometimes it's not always a bodega or a corner store. Sometimes it's a cell phone store. Sometimes they have the neighborhood Shaniqua working there. Sometimes there's beds or futon beds or pallets or mattresses on the floor in the back of these stores. Sometimes they're running up in black women in the stores and have a nice, pious, pure virgin wife at home. Everybody that's in the hood know what I'm talking about. And anybody who tells me not to talk about it, shut up and go someplace else. This is normal. It's not the exception. It's not just one store in one city. It's multiple stores within one city. In every city that has a hood, it's like that. Don't talk about it? No, it's too late. It hasn't been going on for 1 year. It hasn't been going on for 5 years. I took Shahada almost 30 years ago, and it was going on about 10 years before that. This is a decades-old problem. There's imams now that are old and sickly that's been fighting this struggle since before I took Shahada. the immigrant store owner in the hood. They trying to give dawah to the people in the hood that we connected with. And what do the average non-Muslim say? What, you want us to join that Arab religion? Is your Arab brother in that store right there? He's the one selling me this alcohol that you tell me not to drink. He's the one selling me the blunt paper that you telling me not to smoke. Do you tell your Arab Muslim brother that? They are the anti-dawah in the hood. So I give dawah. No, the best way, one of the ways that you immigrant brothers who are not like that want to give dawah, stop your immigrant brothers from doing that in the hood. Deal with your people. We telling you the same thing we tell white people. What do we tell white people? How can I help? How can I help the racism? No, don't get out here with us and march with us. No, go talk to your family members that you know racist. The one that say nigger over the dinner table. The one, your cousin that you don't want to admit that you have. Your father, your uncle that don't have no filter at home when the camera's off. Go deal with them. That's how you can help us. Likewise, our immigrant Muslim brothers that's not like that, the way you can help the dawah in the black community and help the black Muslim community is restrain your brothers, your countrymen, from participating in the anti-dawah. Stop them from selling drug paraphernalia. Stop them from selling cigarettes. Stop them from doing all of these things in the hood. So not only do they do these things in the hood, they also, because, like, especially, like, I don't know about these new younger guys, these tight jeans and all this stuff. You ain't really putting in no work, with your pants beneath your butt and all that. Anyway, right? I don't know about these new guys, but if we got disrespected in our own hood back in the day, I'm talking about blatant disrespect. The fact that they are there carrying on like that, that's disrespectful. But we were too dumb, deaf, and blind to recognize we were being disrespected. When we got blatant disrespect, we shut that spot down violently and not apologize for it. I'm being honest with you. So the fact that these black people that's in the hood now ain't putting hands on y'all need to be thankful about that. I'm being honest with you. So, if any immigrant Muslim brother listens to this and you want to know how to help, or what I was about to say, one of the things that they do, also what they do nowadays, they get one of these local black people. Sometimes it would be less, sometimes they even be Muslim, right? But they get one of these little local drug dealers, half drug dealer, half drug user, not no kingpin type dude, but just some little local, riffraff, that's going to be standing in front of the store all the time. They have him be security. So they won't get touched up by people who was thinking like I did in my Jahiliyyah. So they can get aggressive when they want to with the natives. There's going to be one or a couple of low-level riffraff who may not be technically on the payroll, but they may let them come in and use the bathroom. They may let them sell drugs in or in front or around the store and not call the police. If police come and decide for whatever reason that they want to deal with, mess with the drug dealers, they'll let them come in the store and stash the drugs in the store. They got them type of relationships with them. So when us Muslim brothers come up to the store and try to talk to you, us black Muslim brothers come up to the store and try to talk to you and try to encourage you to stop, selling this poison and hurting our community. We already on self-destruct. We don't need your help. With the self-destruction, you can stick your chest out because you have a local dude. You have a local low-level riffraff that's going to stand between you and us. And so before we check you on the Islamic level, we have to punk this local half crackhead, half dope fiend, sometimes Muslim, sometimes drug dealer, drug user type dude who's standing up in your defense, who you got, on the front lines for you. So this is what they do nowadays. And so a lot of times when you see on the news something happens at one of these immigrant establishments, and then they get some reports from the natives So, oh man, Abdi is good. He treat us good. I ain't never had no problems out of him. Right? You talking to the local riffraff I just described in many cases. It's for you to understand it. It's back in the days when you had in all of these cities black kingpin drug dealers. You know how they used to have, you know, on Thanksgiving they give out all these free turkeys. On Christmas they have toys for the kids, even though they're destroying the neighborhood. Back in the day when you had black kingpin drug dealers. Well, it's the same thing. The immigrant store owner, he does the same thing. 9 times, what he's doing is destroying the neighborhood or whatever. But there's a handful of people that don't have enough money for the 40. They don't have enough money for, you know, the blunt paper. They don't have enough money for the sandwich, the old dirty, nasty sandwich that you're making on the machine that you probably ain't cleaned in a whole week, right? They ain't have no money for the hoagie or the hero or whatever they call it, grinder, whatever they call it in the city that you're from, right? They ain't have enough money for it then, so they let you pay in the beginning of the month when your food stamps come through, right? So that's the person that they're interviewing. He treat me good. That's who they talking to, because they're thankful for the fact that they let them run up a tab. So don't be fooled. Extremely important. Samira says, stop patronizing these establishments. Exactly. I don't go in these places. I don't go in these places. If you see me go in one of those places, number one, I'm coming there to talk to them and try to get them to stop doing what they're doing. Or it must be something I need desperately and everything is closed. Like, I feel like, I don't even like going to them places. I'd be like, man, how in my jahiliyyah, how I even hang out in a place like this? Right? But to wind down, I already went way over long than I said. If they want to help, they can. That's one thing they can do. They can not just talk. Stop accepting their sadaqah money at your masjid. You know that store owner. You know he sell all types of haram. But you turn a blind eye to that regular check he gives you every month. Tell him we don't need your money. That haram money. That money with no barakah in it. Tell him to stop selling the haram. Whatever type of leverage or influence you may have over them, get them to stop doing it. Another way that you can help, you can show us the marketplace. I'm not one of those black American imams that want anything from you. I don't want your money. I don't want your daughter. I don't. Those who give sadaqah, that give, we appreciate it. We thankful for it. I don't beg you for it. I don't. Hey, you think we can get some sadaqah? Hey, my beloved immigrant brother, assalamu alaikum, mashallah, barakallah fikum. Hey, you think we could get a couple of $1,000? All right. Alhamdulillah, a lot of times immigrants give, we thankful for it. I'm not begging you for it though. And, you know, they have a saying, I'm not my grandparents. A lot of people don't like me because I don't beg the immigrants. Yeah, some people like, you know what? Why don't you go ask them for the money? No! They know our situation. If they want to give, they give. Well, I'm not begging nobody for no money. I'm not. Well, we used to. There's a whole lot of used to. Just because you used to, that don't mean it's good. Well, we used to, and they used to. Times has changed. And plus, someone that talked the way I talk, they ain't going to give me no money anyway. Except the ones that's sincere. And when you give money here, you can see exactly where it's going. Sometimes if you see what we do, you be like, man, I only gave them that much money. How do you stretch that money like that? You want to help, you can show us the marketplace. We don't want handouts. Talking about people who think like me, we don't want handouts. There are some people that want handouts. Yeah, I can even think of some local people who always want handouts. Some of them, I mean, it's almost proverbial with them. Like, you know, their whole, if you can call it a platform, is they upset that that the immigrants ain't giving them no handouts. But you can show us the marketplace. How? There's a lot of ways that you can have it. There's brothers that want to go to trade school. Maybe you can finance them. There's people, I'm not just talking about just a random brother. I'm talking about brothers that's connected to the Muslim community. Their hearts are attached to the community, to the masjid. Help them so they can contribute to the community that they already care about. You know, in a lot of these black communities where we having dinners and fish fries and all that kind of stuff, that food that was used to prepare to sell for the fish fry was purchased off of food stamps. Some sisters' food stamps pay for the fish at the fish fry that's being sold at the masjid to make money for the masjid. Yeah. Finance what we already doing. Help some of these indigenous African American masjids buy some property so that they can rent it out so the masjid can have residual income. So that all the money that goes into the sadaqah box, so that we don't have to use the money to pay the electricity and the lights and the gas and the utilities and all of that. Help the masjid get some residual income so that the money that is coming in the sadaqah box, we can give in sadaqah. We can give to people that need it. Show us the marketplace. I've already talked too long. And those of our, you know, a lot of times these things can get like real, some people, we don't know where to draw the line at. Some of us be like, I hate them. No, we don't hate nobody. But it don't stop us from telling the truth. Plus, that ain't us. That's why people can walk over us for so long, because we don't hate nobody. It's not really us to be like that. We don't hate nobody. And don't get like that, especially as a Muslim. You can speak the truth, stand for the truth. Well, I didn't see all these comments. It's like that. Exactly. Exactly. It's like the mobsters going to the church in those mafia movies. Exactly. It's talking about the money that these masters be accepted and stuff like that. Exactly. It was something I wanted to mention before I close. SubhanAllah. We don't hate nobody. Getting the marketplace info is like pulling teeth. Exactly. They keep it. Yeah, I kind of diverged when I was talking about that. Not only are these bodegas, it be like a few families, and you know that be passing it off to each other, but even their wholesalers, they all connected, and so. There's conversations, there's meetings. You know, like you in a drug game, you re-up, you know, you connect with other drug dealers. It's the same way. It's the exact same way. When they go in to re-up for their bodega, they connected with other families and the wholesalers. They all connected, so even when they want to get out the business or the spot get too hot, they pass it on to someone else. They all connected. And we're left out of the conversation. I don't even think they can bring us to a re-up if possible. Listen, I'm going to let this African American Muslim run this store right here in the hood. I'm going to bring him to where I get all of my supplies and all of my sodas and potato chips and all that stuff from. Whenever we get up enough money to start a store, we got to go to Costco's or Sam's Club. We can't go to their marketplace. So, alhamdulillah, this is not the start of a conversation, because we have these conversations all the time amongst ourselves. I'm just talking to us, the conversation that we having right now on this live feed, in the comment section. You all know we have these conversations amongst ourselves. I'm just having the conversation on the microphone with the camera on, with the doors and the windows open so everybody can see it. That's the only thing I'm doing right now. This conversation that we have didn't start with George Floyd. It didn't even start last year. Didn't even start 10 years ago. Didn't even start 20 years ago. 30 plus years ago, this conversation been going on. And so, well, alhamdulillah, in conclusion, 9:30, the information is on my page. Join this other conversation, this roundtable of imams. We're going to be talking about similar and related issues, the black agenda that we need to be talking about, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Make dua for us. And you know what always happens with me? You know, especially if my notes are not complete, like it's not complete now. Soon as I click finish, I'm going to have a whole list of stuff that I forgot to mention that I intended on mentioning. But I'm not going to drag it out anymore. I pray Allah bless the entire Muslim Ummah, black and otherwise. We pray that Allah allow us. See, as soon as I said that, I got to mention one thing. It's very important. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam accepted the Islam of certain tribes, and I'll bring the references maybe later or maybe in Jummah tomorrow. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for example, when the whole tribe would embrace Islam, including their leader remained their leader. He didn't say, okay, you Muslim, and since you're a new Muslim, I'm going to replace your chiefdom or your leadership with one of my Sahaba who've been Muslim longer. No. That new Muslim who was their leader was their leader. Point number one. Point number two. Sometimes there were tribes where the whole tribe didn't become Muslim. Only a portion of the tribe became Muslim, excluding the leader. The leader of the tribe is not Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say you have to disown your tribe. But he appointed a leader from amongst the Muslims as a leader of the Muslims in that tribe. So in other words, a tribe become Muslim, Bani such and such. But everybody in the tribe ain't become Muslim. The chief of the tribe ain't become Muslim. But he's still the chief of the tribe. Those group of Muslims, those group of people of that tribe that became Muslim, they became Muslim, and the Prophet ﷺ appointed an Amir from amongst them to handle the affairs of amongst them. That's a very subtle point that a lot of times we miss when we talk about unity and brotherhood and how this thing going to look. Another point that I needed to mention, along with that, when you look at all of the battles, not all, but most of the battles, when you look at all of the battles, especially during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and even during the time of Abu Bakr and Umar, when there was fighting, the army would be divided up by tribe. Yes. They would be divided up by tribe. Muhajirun, one flank. Ansar, another flank. One time, I can't remember which battle it was, they were fighting the Persians. I don't remember if it was during Abu Bakr or Umar's time. But I believe Khalid ibn Walid was in the head of this army, so most likely it was during the time of Abu Bakr, if you know that history. right? They were taking a loss in one of the battles. And they trying to figure out why is it that they're losing. Allah usually assists us and gives us victory. What's the problem here? And they decided, listen, we need to divide the army up by tribe. We need to see where the weakness is coming from. So they divided the army up by tribe, the way it was done during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they fought and they got victory. They fought and they got victory. What you and I think is tribalism or al-Asabiyah is not tribalism and al-Asabiyah. That's my point here. That's my point here. The Prophet ﷺ explained what al-Asabiyah, racism, tribalism, extreme love for Qawmiyah, right? He was asked, is it al-Asabiyah that a person loves his people? The Prophet ﷺ was asked this explicitly. And there's many narrations of this hadith in the hadith collection. There's been many hadith collections, right? And the Prophet ﷺ said, no. Walakin min al-asabiyya and yu'inu qawma ala dhulm. No, but al-asabiyya is that you help your people in wrongdoing. That's what al-asabiyya is. So loving your people, organizing amongst your people, and all that is not al-asabiyya. Talking to your people, trying to do right by your people, none of that is al-asabiyya. But we have been told that that's al-Asabiyah, right? That's not al-Asabiyah. It's not. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said so. Who's lying? You or the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? But al-Asabiyah, racism, tribalism, etc., 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 is when you get together with your people and do wrong, oppression. So when the Palestinians get together and they open up bodegas in our hood and sell pork, wine, and all that stuff, is that al-Asabiyah or me talking about it and organizing black people against that nonsense? Or is that al-Asabiyah? See, a lot of times it's always the one that's doing it that's accusing you of something. The one that's doing the thing accusing you of doing it. When we stick to the prophetic definitions of what things are, and we pull the covers off, we pull the sheets off. But again, I'm going too long. I already said that I'm way over my time limit. Y'all heard my thing beeping. I apologize for taking too much of your time, and I hope I haven't tired you out for this evening at 9:30. Please tune in, inshallah. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm able to do it yet, but I'm going to try to stream it live from my page, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت واستغفرك وأتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.